we just have to start getting a bit more creative how we think about real estate. Like, does it have to be one house, one family anymore? Tell all your amazing clients, just breathe. It's going to be okay. And again, I'm not being cavalier about this. I just think there's some great opportunities for people to win right now in this marketplace. Your job is to decide if you want to capitalize on them.
Look, I get it. The Toronto real estate market is confusing. Whether you're a new or experienced investor or just looking for a home to raise your family in, join us at Broadview Table Talks as you sit around the table with my friend, talk about real estate and the ever-changing market in Toronto. This is McQueenie, guys. He's like the majority owner, founder of a brokerage. Wealth of experience, 30 years into the business. More than 30 years?
33.
33. You've seen a lot.
I have. I've seen a lot.
And you're not surprised by this market?
Well, no, I was just lucky. Well, maybe it wasn't lucky, but when I came into the business in 1989, it was like a rising market. And then when the market turned in 90 and then was down for the next couple of years, I was a little bit frightened because I just started, I just finished, it was my job, I guess. I just finished university. But there's a certain gift to like a shifted market too, where it gives other people the opportunity to get into the market, and it gives even agents, I was just a young agent at the time, a chance to go and help more people because so many agents got out of the business, so, and you got to learn so much about from creative financing to pricing to staging to dealing with power sales, relocations. Like, it was just amazing. So I think it's, I think just all knowledge is a gift.
And opportunity as well too, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think we could call it a crisis opportunity.
Okay.
Or a crisis opportunity, because every crisis is just really just giving everyone else a different opportunity. And I think for most people who think they have lost their chance to build wealth in real estate, that this will go down as the biggest wealth transfer right now that's ever happened, because there'll be some people who are over leveraged who are giving up wealth, and there's going to be a possibility to really get some more value in the market and to build your own wealth over the future.
Okay, so with that, who do you think is winning in this market right now?
Yeah, I think you just have to pick who wins, right? So I think the first person that wins the most right now is someone who's got a condominium in downtown Toronto, where prices really not dropped, maybe 7, 8, 9% most. So they're selling their condo for $850,000, $950,000. They probably bought it for $400,000 or $500,000. They had a good mortgage rate on it, and now they want to move to Markham or Richmond Hill or Newmarket. Instead of paying $1.8 million for a detached home, they can get in there for 1.2 or 3. Yeah. So instead of having a delta of $1 million, it's only at $300,000. And if they have an existing mortgage at 1.9%, and they're only adding $300,000 more at 4.6 or 5%, they're going to end up with a 2.4% mortgage.
That's right, with a blended rate. Yeah.
With a blended rate. So I think that's who wins the most, for sure. And I think the other people who win is we just have to start getting a bit more creative how we think about real estate. Like, does it have to be one house, one family anymore? I think about the TV series The Golden Girls. And if you remember The Golden Girls, it was 4 unrelated females move in. They all have their own bedroom and bathroom, but they share, the living room, kitchen, and family room, and hilarity ensues, right? That's the kind of premise. So, I think about my own mom who lives in a condo, and in that same building, 7 of my other friends have their moms living there.
Right.
And they're all paying separate maintenance fees, separate utilities. And the other thing they have in common is they're all lonely. Right. And I think who wins is if we could start getting some people like that living together, and they just want to chat. If my mom doesn't say 20,000 words every day, she goes crazy.
Right.
So she just needs someone to use her words on, And I think the other people who win is, what if instead of like 4 people who are thinking about buying a condo, they went in together and bought a 4-plex? Yeah. And they agreed that they were going to live there for 5 years. And their carrying costs would be half of what a condo would be. And the appreciation of a 4-plex is like double that of a condo right now. So it's like, and most of the fourplexes are in all the great neighborhoods. Like they're all next to subway stops, you know, they were built right on transit. And they're usually in really great walkable neighborhoods, from Bloor West to the Danforth to Leaside, Central Toronto to, you know, Mimico, you name it. Like they're in the beaches, they're all in the great neighborhoods.
Yeah, now as of right, you can do a threeplex, right, or triplex.
Yeah.
So that'd be nice in Ontario.
Well, that's a game changer, Ken. I'm glad you brought it up, because, you know, before you could have the neighbor saying, I'm not letting you do that.
Right.
And now when they basically said it's as a right zoning, which means if I want to convert my home into 3 units, I have it as a right. Nobody can object. And it's the same. It's like building a deck is as a right, as long as you just fit in, you know, to that. And I think that's the key.
Did you also see that today? They announced that they don't have rooming houses, as long as it's like it's gonna be licensed or whatever. So no issues with zoning again. And in Toronto, that's gonna be different as well too. For, you know, because there's a lot of people that come in from, you know, immigrants in Canada, and they come here with a sticker price shock of, wow, it costs how much to get a place? And they're all looking for roommates as well too. But it's, you know, it's hard to find a roommate if you're coming from a different country. Yeah. So yeah, if you get a rooming house for $900, $1,000 a month or whatever, it's like the Golden Girls model, like you were saying, except you don't know each other.
Yeah, and you got your own room, and you can go. And you know, we've had rooming houses in Toronto for 130 years. Like, this is not a new concept, and it was a place where people could go and get their start. You know, and right now we've just created almost an atmosphere where Alberta can run ads about how cheap it is to go to Alberta. You know, but who else wins too, Ken? Right now is if you've got a detached home. Not only could you turn that into 3 units, but let's say you didn't want to. Let's say you just want to put in a basement apartment or 2 basement apartments. And now you can put in an accessory dwelling unit in your backyard as a right, you know? And I know, like, there's some people that they can install them because they're all modular now in about 6 hours. It's put into your backyard. And, you know, it's great for the environment. They just have to connect to the sewer and the water and the electricity lines. And I know of another person right now who's building one, and it's costing them about $165,000 to build just under 500 square feet.
That's cheap.
But they're going to be able to rent that, and this is in Windsor, for $1,300, which means it would be $1,800 in Toronto. So I'd rather rent a coach house with a backyard that I could sit on my deck or whatever I wanted to do than be in a tiny 382 square foot box in the sky at $2,700. You know?
So in theory, you can get the triplex going and then add the ADU afterwards and do the 4 units, right, in a property, a single family property.
Right. And what if you bought the fourplex and then you just finance this rental, the accessory dwelling through there? And you just took all of that rent, and it would probably pay for itself at $2,000 a month in 7 or 8 years. Yeah. Completely paid off. And because so much of it's going directly to the principal all the time, your amortization is going to be shorter too. So I think that's just another opportunity for someone else to win right now.
Yeah. Those are only people that are, you know, even in an interest rate environment like this, it's just a short term, you know, 1-2 year, whatever, how long it's going to take to hopefully it comes back down a little bit, reverts to the mean. So if you can just get in while prices are low, everything's on sale right now.
Yeah. Well, it's on sale, and the rates are not that bad. Like, you know, 4.6, 5%. You know, for residential, you know, and when I started, they went from 7.9 up to 15.9. And I think what you're going to see here, depending on how high rates go, is you're going to start seeing builders, or you're going to see sellers offering to buy down the interest rate. Like every house I sold in 91, 92, it was the seller agrees to credit the purchaser $20,000 on closing to buy the interest rate down from 15.9 to 9.9%, just so they could qualify.
Right.
And a lot of the banks were like, we're not doing that yet. I'm like, well, it's coming. Like, you're going to have to, right? Yeah. And a lot of the builders are doing that now. In fact, you know, builders can win too, because they're sitting with some unsold inventory right now. And I was talking to one the other day where we showed it. I said, how much is it to build this? And he was like, $48,000 to put in a basement apartment. I said, if you put in that basement apartment, the purchaser now qualifies for $200,000 more in your house. Mm-hmm. You could even raise your prices a bit more, raise it up to 100. spend the 48 on this, and everybody wins because now the purchaser is going to get $1,200 or $1,500. You know, so I think they win. And I think, you know, even people who want to downsize now, like a lot of seniors, they can win now because they might not have got peak price, but many of them bought it when their house was $13,500, and instead of selling it for $2 million, it sells for $1.6 million. But now they can take all that money and put it in the bank and be guaranteed 4.5% in a treasury bill. You know, so they win now, where before they couldn't because they'd take all that money out and they were only going to get like 0.5% in the bank. So I think downsizers get to win on this, and I think. If you're a family with young kids, you know, you can't wait for the market to come back around if you want to get your kids into a great school district right now. So this might be a chance for them to get in there because prices have come off 10 or 12%, at least probably in some of the key neighborhoods. And so now they can get in there a little bit cheaper, and they're probably going to be moving up. So they'll be similar to those condo people we talked about, where it's just the additional cost is at a higher interest rate, not the whole mortgage. You know?
Yeah, if you're on a fixed mortgage, you can port it, right? Some people, if you're variable, you can't port it, but
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you, National Bank, they sent this because all mortgages used to be portable, right? As long as it had the same ratio of value, debt equity ratio, you know, to the property. And National Bank, I guess, had come out and said, we're not going to do that anymore. And then they got such a big backlash. I think it was just this week. They said, oh, no, go move your mortgage. Yeah.
So that's great.
I think they win. And then I think tenants can win now because they're in a really precarious situation right now where if they're not in a rent-controlled building, the landlord can raise the rent from $2,700 this year to $3,400 next year. And if you don't pay it, there's a lineup of people who are desperate to pay it. So if the tenants want to be in control of their life, this is a great opportunity for them to partner up with maybe 2 or 3 friends and go buy a triplex together, or buy a detached, or buy detached and put it into 3 units and still put the basement apartment in, and they'll still be way cheaper owning that house and paying their own mortgage than if they were to stay at the risk of that landlord.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, or they could stay in place, continue renting at the rent control building, and then invest in the market when it's down a little bit as well too.
If they're in a rent controlled, but I was talking, more if they weren't, you know, where just arbitrarily, because there's a lot of units now that are not covered by rent control.
That's right. Because everything's going up by 20 to 25% year over year, and it's nonstop immigration. People are still coming in. We need the immigration, you know, so that's not going to go away anytime soon. So there's definitely a floor in the pricing, for sure. Yeah,
and you know, how many renters can go to their boss and say, hey, listen, if you don't give me a 20 or 25% raise, I'm out of here. Like, you know, like they can't. So there's no elasticity for them to go and even try to pay it, right? And so I think this is a great time for people who are renting right now to maybe just think about getting together. And it's just a 5-year plan. Go buy something for 5 years. And take all of your rent, and you know, you'll be paying less, I'll guarantee, if you buy a house with a few friends. And you know, like there's a property now just on Avenue Road north of Upper Canada College. I think it's like 3.2 million, 3.4 million, but it's 5 units. That's like $500,000-$600,000 condos. And there was a place just by Sporting Life on Yonge Street on Strathgowan, I think it was. And they can Google it if they're, I think it was called number 42 Strathgowan. And it sold for $2 million, and it was 4 1-bedrooms. And I was like, well, that's perfect, you know? Like, couldn't 4 single people buy all of that and pitch in $500,000 each? And I'll guarantee you that they can't get any condo that they probably like for 500. And so I just think they would win, and you could still put in an accessory dwelling unit in the backyard. And if those places, usually it's say $18,000, $1,500 a month to probably cover your taxes and heating and water. The accessory dwelling unit could just cover that now. So I just think there's always in crisis, there's always just some great opportunity in this market.
And what would you say to those people that are already holding property and are maybe underwater, their interest rates, they've hit their trigger rates and they have to increase their payments, all that stuff?
hang in.
Yeah. All right. It's going to be a wild ride.
Well, it's a cycle, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody really knows where the economy's going now. And there's two camps. Like one, it's like going to be a short, shallow recession, year and a half, hold on. Others are this is more structural. It's going to be 7 to 10 years. And we don't know. I do know in 1990 that when the market corrected, it took until 2002 for the prices to go back to where they were in 1989. So that was 12 years, which surprises most people. But I think just hang on right now if you can. If not, it's okay to downsize, and get to where you need to be. But maybe you could maybe there's a model where if you sold your place, we could find you something where it's got a basement apartment already that's going to be cheaper for you for the next 5 years, but will still probably hold its value well. And we can put in an accessory dwelling unit or, I just think this is the era. Over the next 5 years, you're going to see more creativity in real estate space than you've ever seen. And I think relying on the government, I'm apolitical, but to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years when the most we've ever really built is 70 or 75,000 in a year is just unrealistic.
40,000, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if we count on the governments to really do much, I'm not sure. I think that you're going to see the private sector will innovate like it's never done before.
Yeah.
And the technology behind a lot of that is this modular construction where they can actually, it's much cheaper because you don't have all the very expensive trades working on the house as they're building it. And it's done in a factory, it can be put up in a week.
It's climate controlled too and all that stuff. So that's on the supply side. And then I think there's going to be some innovation in the lending side as well too. There has to be. Maybe they bring back longer amortizations. There's a lot of rumors talking about 40-year amortizations as well too for residential mortgages.
And they should.
So, they didn't drop the stress test today, which kind of is annoying, but it is what it is, and it's for good reason anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think there'll be a lot of innovation in the lending industry, and then, so let's see what happens.
Absolutely. I think you're already starting to see some of it, and a lot more creativity in that industry than there ever has been. And I think there could even be opportunities for your clients where they're willing to put up the money for the house, and someone is willing to put the mortgage in their name, and they're just a joint venture investment where they've got some extra capital, and that person is responsible for maintaining it. But instead of it being like a rent to own, where you overpay in rent and you get it back, it's just like it's a 5-year plan we've got, and I'm going to put down the down payment, and we're going to sell in 5 years, and we're going to share the differences. So I think you're going to see a lot of that joint venturing, I think. And I think even parents should actually be joint venturing with their kids instead of just giving them the money. Just joint venture it, because then you're still in control.
Right, right.
So yeah, I think 2023 is going to be a year of a lot of people winning.
Yeah. There's a lot of capital out in the world still, and a lot of equity, like different from the 80s, right? Like the values went up so much because, the prices went up recently. So yeah, there's a lot of equity in there, so.
Yeah, and I think the steepness of how severe the rates went up will also be the steepness of when the rates go down. This hasn't been like a long, slow build. This is like maximum pain really, in 4 months, and then so I just don't know. We have a lag of 6 to 9 months until they really figure out what the impacts are. But
speaking of the rates going up so much, I saw a stat the other day that Canada, were 7% inflation rates or whatever, but there's parts of the world where it's like 250% interest rates, like Zimbabwe and other places. Like, I think it was Turkey or something was like 80% inflation year over year. That's insane.
I know.
And some people, like a friend of mine was telling me in Lebanon that they only have electricity during the daytime. At nighttime, they completely shut the grid off because of their energy crisis in the Europe over there.
Yeah.
So
we're pretty lucky.
Yeah. So people complaining about high interest rates, yeah, it sucks, but we're not that bad overall in terms of inflation.
Yeah. I think the reason people are complaining is maybe two reasons, and I think they're very well founded, Ken. Number one is, this 6% mortgage feels like your parents' 12% because the prices are just, there's more to mortgage, so the shock is bigger.
Right.
And secondly is most people, we've had 25 years of really pretty good growth, right? Or 20 at least. With no real recession, a little dip in 8, a little dip in 17. But so no one's really ever seen this, and they certainly never, if you're under 30, you've never seen rates this high ever, so we get used to it. So, so what? It's a cycle. Well, no, and I mean I'm not being cavalier about it. I just think that we have to just people tend to underestimate or overestimate what they can do in a year, or but they underestimate how they can build wealth over their lifetime. And I think that the real message here is just try to chill out and hold the fort right now. Try to cut your personal expenses by 20-25%. Do whatever you need to do right now, because we'll get through it, and what goes up comes down. And but in the meantime, it's a great time to buy. It's so crazy how in January, February, people were fighting over each other, 30 people to buy a house. And now when the prices have dropped 12, 25, 40% in some areas, people are like, ooh, I'm not so sure. And I was like, no. Now all the wealth gets created in the down market. It never gets created in that market.
Right.
Yeah, no one ever bought like Nortel at the top and got wealthy.
Right.
If you're old enough to know what Nortel is.
Right.
BlackBerry. Yeah, BlackBerry, yeah. All the wealth creation just gets created when you just understand the basics. And the basics are inflation rates to go up and down. And that is the gear that's the biggest influence on the Bank of Canada. And in tough times, they're going to flood the money with cheap capital. And other times they're going to raise it and restrict the money supply, and understand that. And unemployment rates, we still have a labor shortage. Rates aren't wages aren't falling. If anything, they're going up quicker than they ever have.
It's kind of scary.
And our gross domestic product is still pretty strong. We're doing very well.
Per capita is coming down just because of immigration. That's why the GDP is up.
Yeah, that's okay.
Should be negative.
Well, that's okay. Well, it does, because we have with 300,000 to 500,000 new immigrants coming. They're not starting at the top of the wage sector, and some of them are not at the most productive capacity yet. But what a great gift we have. And I mean, my parents were immigrants. I think the beautiful thing about Toronto now, as I believe that it's like 54% of the population wasn't born in Canada. And
nice.
I think it's one of the best case studies on how everyone can get along, and we're basically, we can respect each other's differences, but just really function very well in this great country.
Okay, so there's a lot of predictions there, a lot of bold predictions. The last time we talked in 2017, literally 6 months later, you predicted this Fair Housing Act. So you said some government intervention was coming up, and then they had the Fair Housing Act. That was pretty impressive, actually. So
lucky, probably, but yeah, no. You knew they had to do something, right? But you can see that when the government can really distort a market when it brings in stuff like that.
Yeah, that was huge, and I couldn't believe how fast they increased the rates this time around too. So it definitely, no one was expecting that. So it definitely killed the market a little bit. But like you say, there's opportunity, and I guess we'll see what happens with creativity in the construction industry and the real estate industry and lending, whatever, right? And materials, labor, whatever. So there's definitely going to be, at the end of the day, we all need somewhere to live and do business.
We need somewhere to sleep, and we need something to eat, and that's our core necessities. And I don't think that'll ever change. And so I think a lot of people can win in this market. There can be some people who are going to lose too. Like if you bought January and February and you're on a variable rate mortgage and rates just went up, it's pretty painful right now.
It's going to hurt, yeah.
But so yeah, you're going to have that. But in an busy market, there was people who were losing too, because they were only qualified for 600 and everything went up to 800,000 or 900,000. So it's going to be okay.
Buying power came down, and I think that right now there's still a floor in the prices. I mean, let alone inventory shrinking because nobody wants to sell at a low market. Also, the amount of immigration coming in as well too, and the demand for housing, and then also the supply shortages too. Like builders aren't building. There's a lot of canceled. Like the housing starts is lower than normal. It's the lowest it's ever been, really. So we're gonna have this problem in 4 or 5 years when more and more people coming in, but they have nowhere to live.
I think you just nailed it. That is the story. As much as the media says, oh, real estate, we just talk about supply, it's like, well, because we understand the law of supply and demand. And when you cut back on the supply and you increase the demand by bringing more and more people to fight for the same product, then the prices are, They don't go down.
Right. Right.
So, and they're certainly not building. I know a lot of the apartment construction that was scheduled, they yanked it. We're not building apartments. We're not building rentals right now because we have no guarantee on financing, number one. And two, we have no guarantee on capital costs.
Right.
And so they're not going to build. So yeah, I would just, I guess, tell all of your amazing clients, just breathe. It's going to be okay. And again, I'm not being cavalier about this. I just think that there's some great opportunities for people to win right now in this marketplace. And your job is to decide if you want to capitalize on them right now.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for the great insight again.
No problem.
And look forward to seeing this.
Thank you for being so amazing and just taking care of your buyers and sellers at such a high level. So
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. That's awesome.
Add it up.